1 minute.
Man, I'm trying to be like you, man.
Yeah, hey, Larry, how's it going? I'm slumming it tonight. I'm getting a new suit.
All right, be nice. Take away all the marbles. I'm going to take away all the marbles, okay? Now I'm going to rake the circle.
Oh, okay.
Remember that draw supposed to play marbles? Yeah, I read about it.
Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Buckner.
Here.
Reverend Campbell.
Here.
Mayor Gilstrap.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jones.
Here.
Dr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Saunders.
Here.
Mr. Shanks.
Here.
Mr. Vogel.
Here.
Mr. Whittle.
Please stand and join us in the invocation led by Council Member Sherman Saunders, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Father, we come tonight to say thank you for your many blessings. We ask that you will forgive us for the things we may have done that were not in your will. To you, God, we apologize. We ask for your guidance as we try to serve the citizens of this wonderful city. We pray for the success of families and businesses. Please guide our children, parents, schools, leaders of government, and all charged with making decisions that impact our daily living. Please continue to bless our city employees, law enforcement personnel, public safety workers, neighbors, and others, your children, God, everywhere. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Communications from visitors. Citizens who desire to speak on matters not listed on the agenda will be heard at this time. Citizens who desire to speak on an agenda item will be heard when the agenda item is considered. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda, please come forward, state your name and address.
I was down at the river and I found this brick. It's got Egypt on it. So it symbolizes the beginning of man.
Excuse me, sir.
From God.
We can't hear you unless you're at the mic.
From God. And I found this brick at the Confederate Treasury. And I've got the capstone that went on top of the Confederate Treasury. And after I found this brick, I documented, and I had an omen from the God Almighty himself.
Yes.
An omen. I saw a fish, a deer, and a rabbit. I got a witness. I can bring him. So with the power invested in me through God and George Washington, I'm claiming the Confederate treasure as of this moment in time. And I'll remove it. I'll remove the treasure from the city. They will never know. They will never see me. And I would tell you where it is, but y'all wouldn't like it because y'all pass it every day. It's there, but nobody sees it. I've got 500 rocks there. I'm going to move those off. I'm going to get it. And I don't know what I'm going to do it because it's going to stink like all crazy. It's going to stink. You won't be able to even stand around it. And I don't know where I'm going to put it, but I will let the whole public world know what it is and what's in it. And I have no idea, other than the story says it was 39 kegs of silver. And on the back of this brick, this is a cool brick, it was a little slither of gold in the back of it. So I know in the treasury, it's a little slither of gold. I don't know how much a slither is, but there's enough gold in the earth to wrap the earth 12 times. That's why we're going to be walking in heaven on gold streets. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Let me know what you want me to do. Here's my phone number, 434-250-5365. Let me know.
Okay.
I'll dig it. I'm going to dig it up. I can dig it up tomorrow. I can go right now. Would y'all like for me to tell you where it is?
No, sir. I think it would be best if you didn't. I don't want thousands of people rushing out there.
Good. But I will
city
tell
manager will be in
I will
communication.
tell you that everybody walks by. The only thing you see is trash. You don't see anything pleasurable. You just see trash. And nothing goes through your mind except trash. But it's right there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on an item not on the agenda? Please come forward and state your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Steve Atkins, and I live at 821 Ringgold Depot Road in Ringgold, Virginia. If I could I?
Sure.
Daniel's been taking quite a few pictures of the river district area. But I'm here tonight to let you know that, and I'm sure some of you already know, we started a petition. The purpose of the petition is not to demand any kind of action. It's just to ask the City Council give due diligence to the thoughts of removing the White Mill Dam. As of today, we've got about 500 signatures, and all the purpose of the petition is for is to give you guys an idea of how many people in the city of Danville are concerned with seeing a White Mill stay, if it's at all possible, and it is feasible.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I think I would be most interested in seeing that, but I'd also be most interested in seeing how many city residents had signed that petition.
They're giving their address and their emails.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
These to be passed around. Anyone else wish to speak on an item not on the agenda? Please come forward, state your name and address.
Mr. Mayor.
Or where, at least where you reside. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff, I respectfully ask that when you receive that petition, you go through that petition and strike any name of a non-city resident from that petition. You are the elected body of the residents of the city of Danville. We have the right to come before you and express our feelings, but that does not give citizens outside of the city the right to come and express their opinions. I know some will tell you, we buy our electricity from the city of Danville, therefore we have the right. I buy my food from Food Line. I buy my gas from Quality Plus. I don't have the right to go tell those people how to run their business. You are the people that we, the citizens of Danville, elected, and you have only to answer to the citizens of Danville. Thank you.
And for the record, please state your name.
Sorry, I thought I did. Harold Garrison, I live on Westover Drive. I am a resident of the city.
Thank you, Harold. Mr. Garrison, excuse me. I said thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on an item not on the agenda? Please state your name and address, please.
William Hurley, 1608 Glen Street, Danville, Virginia. I am a resident, and I don't think the dam ought to be torn down either. It's also got historic value. As old as that dam is, there ought to be a way to save it. Not to mention that, as a fisherman, I have fished that river my whole life. Once y'all tore that first dam down, it's made it hard for any of us to even try to fish the river because of the water levels. If you tear that one down, we ain't gonna have no water. On top of that, the bait fish that come up to that dam, it ain't no telling how many species, if you tear it down, because it's already developed its own ecosystem, that it's going to affect. I mean, if we tear it down, it's gone. If they need to figure a way also, if they do, to try to save most of it. If they need to make a canal on the other side, a small one or something, for the canoes, or either put a fish ladder up or something they can canoe down. But try to save it. It's all we've got. The big fish ain't coming in no more. With the coal ashes messed us up. It's all we got. And if you name it a park, then therefore there's another problem. We're trespassing if we fish at night. The catfish mostly bite at night. So what do? We're in a rock and hard place too. There's nowhere for us to fish. And I just wanted to speak my piece. Not to mention, that's where I found my wife 23 years ago. And I go there every day, sometimes more.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on an item not on the agenda? Please state your name and address.
My name is Brenda Bowman. I reside in Dry Fork out in Pittsylvania County. I had not planned to speak, but after listening to a couple of them, I thought I should. I do live in Pittsylvania County, but I'm born and raised in Danville. Spent many, many years in Danville, half of my life here and half in the county. So even though I'm not a citizen of Danville, and you don't represent me, I do ask you to please take into consideration what those of us in the county feel. I spend many days in the city shopping, eating. A lot of my time is over in the city, and y'all know that. I want to oppose the dam coming down, so I want to go on record as that, and ask that you please consider what we think in the county, because when we speak of the region, we are now the region, and everything that we do is jointly, and it affects all of us, and I ask that you take that into consideration.
Sure, we've always thought highly of our residents in the county, and we've always listened to them. But Ms. Bowman, before you go, answer a question for me. At the Board of Supervisors meeting, and in your public segment where public speaks on items not on the agenda, or even on the agenda items, do you allow non-city residents of Pennsylvania County to speak?
No.
I didn't think so. Thank you. Appreciate it.
But thank you for allowing me to speak.
Anyone else wish to speak on items not on the agenda? Fine, we will move to other agenda items. First is the minutes. Consideration of approval of the minutes from regular council meeting held February 21st, 2017. Councilman Saunders, Councilman Campbell.
Yes. Larry. A motion for the adoption of minutes.
Is there a second? Councilman Saunders. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Buckner?
Aye.
Reverend Campbell?
Aye.
Mayor Gilstrap?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Aye.
Dr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Saunders?
Aye.
Mr. Shanks?
Aye.
Mr. Vogler?
Aye.
Mr. Whittle?
Aye.
Under old business, consideration of amending the fiscal year 2017 budget appropriation ordinance by increasing the revenue of a National Park Service African American Civil Rights Grant for renovations at 407 Holbrook Street. Councilman Buckner.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2017 budget appropriation ordinance by increasing revenue for a National Park Service African American Civil Rights Grant in the amount of $413,270 to be used to fund the renovation of 407 Holbrook Street for the development of the Williams Community Resource Center.
Is there a second to the motion? Councilman Shanks. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Reverend Campbell.
Aye.
Mayor Gilstrap.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Dr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Shanks.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Mr. Whittle.
Aye.
Mr. Buckner.
Aye.
Item B, consideration of adopting an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2017 budget to allow for grant funds from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. Councilman Vogler.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2017 budget appropriation ordinance to provide for a grant from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management in an amount of $60,000 to upgrade, expand, and sustain the equipment of the Danville Regional Hazardous Materials Response Team and appropriating the same.
Is there a second? Councilman Jones. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mayor Gilstrap.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Dr. Miller. Mr. Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Shanks.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Mr. Whittle.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Buckner.
Aye.
Reverend Campbell.
Aye.
Under new business, consideration of adopting an ordinance to appropriate funds for the IDA to purchase the White Mill property. Councilman Campbell.
Mr. Mayor, I move for adopting ordinance amending the fiscal year 2017 budget appropriation orders to provide a funding for the general fund balance for the purchase of the White Mill property in amount of $1.5 million and appropriate the same. First reading.
Seconded by Council Miller. First reading. Any discussion? Councilman Shanks.
Yes, Mayor, I just wanted to get something clear in my mind, and I guess this is a question for the city manager. I was under the impression that the $1.5 million for this year's budget, which will go with $1.5 million from next year's budget to total the $3 million. I was under the impression that there was $1.5 million in this year's budget in economic development money on hand. Is that not true?
No, that's not correct.
So this is, according to the report, which I thought it was, somehow I misunderstood this in the work session. But so this 1.5 is coming from fund balance.
Yes.
And next year's 1.5 also is coming from fund balance.
It's in the budget for next year, but that amount would be coming from fund balance next year as well, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I probably should clarify. There are, if it's appropriate.
Sorry.
That's the usage of fund balance is, it may not be fund balance that's used to pay for this project. We're looking for alternative funding for this in a variety of ways. So it's basically appropriating the budget at this point is to have a backstop, I guess, to the funding source if we can't find other funding mechanisms to pay for it. So I wanted to clarify that. So we're actively looking for other ways to raise that money. Obviously we'll keep City Council appraised along the way, and if we don't need to use fund balance, we won't. And I just wanted to clarify that.
Councilman Shanks.
Yeah, Mayor, since we're in the budget process, I'd like to request that the information be provided for the last 7 or 8 years for fund balance. That's been the running balance over the years. And actually what I would like to see is to see the fund balance as of the end of the year and the fund balance, the transaction that happens right at the end of the year. There's monies that either are left over or not in each department. And that money, if it's left over, I think goes to fund balance. So that would grow the fund balance over the years. I'd like to see 8 or 10 years worth of that, so we can consider that in the budget process.
Thank you. We discussing that tonight at the work session?
Yes, there will be some information on that in the financial report at the work session. Right. But it may not be everything you asked for.
Yeah, I didn't. I've been, unless it's something in a handout, I haven't seen any. What I was looking for.
It may not be the history and I think what you asked for is the history of that fund.
Yeah, so we can get an idea of the last several councils, how they've.
And up and down.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Any other discussion? Matters. Councilman Whittle.
Yeah, this wasn't on the top of my list of things, but at least with going into this contract, we'll be able to get some engineering, get some different pieces of the project that we need to see, I think, before we buy it. Plus, it gave us a due diligence period on top of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilman Vogel.
Yeah, and Councilman Whittle on the same page with me in terms of getting to what I was going to ask. Maybe if the city manager just wanted to elaborate or just want to make clear to everyone. Obviously, this is just a first reading tonight, so we're not approving anything anyway. But as Councilman Whittle alluded to, there's a due diligence that comes with this and some other work that that maybe you want to elaborate on, and also that it is not just the White Mill building, but the properties around it. Maybe just for those who haven't had the ability to read all the information yet, if we could take just a couple minutes to explain that for those here and watching on TV.
Sure. The IDA has entered into a purchase agreement for all the properties, including where the building is. There are several parcels. I believe the total amount of value for those parcels when they were purchased by the current owner is about $2.7 million. And Telly's back there if I'm wrong. I think that's the amount, $2.7 million. There was additional costs associated with the cleanup and demolition of buildings, estimating that the current owner paid probably $4 million total for the property, including the building, cleanup, and demolition. We do have a purchase agreement. When we say we, the IDA has a purchase agreement with a due diligence period up until May 15th. And until that time, if the IDA learns anything about the property, the building, or its condition, and decides that it is not in the best interest to purchase the property, it can walk away from the deal with no impact to the deposit, or very little impact to the deposit. I mean, when I say very little, I mean extremely little.
It's $100.
$100. Okay.
Good.
And I believe that answers your question. Did I catch your?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we gave folks out there another opportunity just to kind of get a clearer picture of the whole thing. I know there's been some questions and some maybe people wanting more information. So thank you. That was.
And we're glad to talk to anybody who's interested in learning more about it.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councilman Shanks.
The hope is the IDA will find a purchaser and they'll go back on tax rolls. But in the meantime, the city will lose about $20,000 in tax receipts. Is that correct, roughly? 73 cents per hundred?
Yes.
Over 2.7 million?
Well, I don't know if the 2.7 is the tax value on the property. That's the amount that it was purchased for. So it may not be exactly that.
Can you get that information? We
can look that up and let you know. Yep.
And the next question I had was, this is first reading. The second reading, council then steps out, and the process is entirely up to the IDA. Is that?
Well, the IDA
has come back to council for a vote.
What
next meeting?
The second reading, right?
Yes.
Once the second reading takes place, if it passes, then council's out of the picture and the IDA is
That's correct.
in control. Okay.
And the IDA will then, at that point, have an idea of whether or not there's funding available to actually pay for it.
One last question. Why do we need to appropriate funds before the due diligence is done?
I prefer to have, my thought process is that it would be good to have the money in place before executing the purchase.
The only reason I ask is the due diligence is going to provide council and the IDA with information about the building and the property. And it would seem appropriate for council to know what the issues are before they allocate the money.
Our plan would be to keep council and the IDA both equally informed along the way.
But once the second meeting, hearing of this is heard, and if it passes, we're totally out of the decision process.
Well, that would be approximately 3 weeks. We don't meet it would be 2 weeks before. They have 2 weeks before we'll vote on it.
Right, and due diligence will not have been completed. And due diligence will not have been completed.
Well, the due diligence deadline will not have occurred.
Same thing.
Councilman Saunders.
Mr. Mayor, I realize this is the first reading, and we are not voting the call for the first reading, but I believe he called for the question to end the debate. I call for the question.
Well, clarify then, you are calling for the question to end the debate.
Yes, sir.
But if there's no more discussion, we don't really need to vote on that. So, and I haven't seen anybody else's hand except Councilman Shanks, so.
I didn't raise that.
Well, if he's called for the question, then that takes precedent. You vote on the question first before we continue the discussion or not. If I'm correct there, Council City Attorney?
Yes, sir.
You want to hold that and let Lee make a comment, or you want to call for the question?
Call for the question.
Can I do that by hand vote,
Yes,
City
sir.
Attorney?
Yes, sir.
All in favor of calling the question, please signify by raising a hand. All opposed, same sign. I count 6-3. Item closed for first reading. Consider B, consideration of adopting an ordinance to provide for grant funds. Your pleasure. Councilman Campbell.
Mr. Mayor, move for adopting an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2017 budget appropriation ordinance to provide for a University of Virginia subrecipient grant award in an amount of $237,832 and appropriating the same. First reading.
Is there a is there a second? Is there a second to this motion? Second. Councilman Saunders. Any discussion? First reading. Consideration of approving a resolution to authorize the Director of Utilities to serve as a member of the Board of Trustees for American Municipal Power, Inc. What is your pleasure? Councilman Jones.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt a resolution designating Jason Gray to represent the City of Danville as a member of the Board of Trustees of American Municipal Power Incorporated.
Is there a second? Councilman Saunders. Any discussion? Please call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Dr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Shanks.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Mr. Whittle.
Aye.
Mr. Buckner.
Aye.
Reverend Campbell.
Aye.
Mayor Gilstrap.
Aye. D, consideration of adopting an ordinance to create a civil penalty system for the maintenance code violations. Let me clarify, that's still on the agenda, that hadn't been withdrawn.
That's correct. The original item E was a zoning issue, therefore it needs to go back to the Planning Commission before it comes back to
But
you
this
for
one
final
stays
adoption,
on.
but this one's fine.
What is your pleasure? Council. Councilman Jones.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt an ordinance amending the Code of the City of Danville, Virginia, 1986 as amended to provide for civil penalties for certain violations of the Uniform Statewide Building Code.
Is there a second? Councilman Campbell. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Dr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Shanks.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Mr. Whittle.
Aye.
Mr. Buckner.
Aye.
Reverend Campbell.
Aye.
Mayor Gilstrap.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jones.
Communications. City Manager.
I have nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Deputy City Manager.
Nothing this evening, thank you, Mayor.
City Attorney.
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
City Clerk.
Nothing, sir.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Saunders.
Nothing there.
Mr. Shanks.
Nothing.
Mr. Vogler.
This is my time to discuss what I'd like, correct? Mr. City Manager, I have a question about the White Mill property. After the second reading that we have here at Council, the IDA has to formally meet before the transaction is completed, correct? Or do they not?
I think.
Yes, they
Yes. Okay.
It has to formally be.
It is set for closing on June 15th, and that's why you have the due diligence period up to a month prior to closing.
Okay.
So they will meet in their April meeting, and they will meet in their May meeting prior to the, I believe, prior to the due diligence date, actually.
Would they have a meeting after the due diligence?
Yes, they'll have a June meeting prior to the closing.
The reason I ask that is because, going back to Fred's point, is that council is technically out of the equation, but if something were to come up in the due diligence that gave us significant pause, we would have the ability to go to the IDA and express our reservations.
Yep.
And I don't want to speak for them, but I would imagine that if council came down and said we don't want to do this, the IDA would.
That's correct. And the other mitigating factor is that the other half of the payment is part of the upcoming budget, and that budget won't be adopted on the current schedule until June 6th. So if at some point it looks like the council won't appropriate the funds necessary to pay the second half of the payment, then the IDA would be very interested in that information.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. I know there are a lot of people interested in this subject, and I just want to make sure all the correct information is presented out to people. I have two other quick things that I want to mention. The wing ding, kickin' chicken wing ding thing that the River District Association is this Saturday from 5 to 10. I know they're still selling tickets. The Pizzazz Band, I believe, is playing. Should be a fun time. River District Association does a lot of great things with what's going on in our downtown, and this should be a fun night. So just wanted to give a plug for them. Go down to their office on Main Street if you're interested in getting tickets. Should be a fun time. And lastly, I just want to mention, and I don't know if you could tell for folks watching on TV, but I'm wearing a green bracelet, not just because it was St. Patrick's Day this past weekend, but this actually says, I support the Danville Life-Saving Crew, and I know Vice Mayor Jones, myself, and the city manager were there last week, and Madison was there. I'm sorry, Madison, didn't want to forget you. Councilman Whittle was there looking sharp as ever, and we were there and had a great time with the volunteers and the folks of the Danville Life-Saving Crew. The men and women do a fantastic job. Their time and their effort and energy and everything that they do, and I just wanted to take a minute to thank them for what they do. And folks, if you're interested in volunteering or supporting the Danville Life-Saving Crew, look them up or go by and see them at their facility and let them know how you'd like to help out. But I just want to thank the Danville Life-Saving Crew for what they do. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Whittle? No. Mr. Buckner?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to the people that showed up for the Love Where You're From event that they had at the Institute last week. It really reinforced a lot of things that all of us have been preaching and trying to get across to the community for a long time. But love where you're from. This is your home. Do everything you can to shine a positive light on it and make it somewhere that you really want to be. I want to remind everybody there's a food truck festival coming up on Bridge Street June the 3rd from 12 to 6 p.m. It's going to be a really good time. We're going to have at least 12 trucks there, and please come out and support it. It's going to be a real great time. There's also a concert later that night at the community market. The community market will be open that morning as well, so it'll be a fun time. If you say there's nothing to do in Danville, it's just because you're not looking. There's plenty to do here. Thank you, Mayor.
Reverend Campbell?
Nothing.
Mayor Gilstrap?
First of all, I want to echo what a few people have already said. The Pizzazz Band is great. If you haven't heard the Pizzazz Band, they're really, really good. I would encourage you to go hear them at the Wing Ding. I thought the Love Where You're From workshop and luncheon was excellent, and I wish every citizen of Danville could have been there. It was really, really good and made you think about being positive about where you're from, your city. And I would also like to thank everybody for watching on TV and attending in person, and thank you for all those who participated in our public session. I think that's great. And I'd like to thank Mark. He provided me a hearing aid, and I heard every word tonight. And that was a uh-oh, yeah. But anyway, thank you, Mark. It worked great.
Vice Mayor Jones?
The GW cheerleaders this past weekend participated in the Cheer and Dance Championship at North Carolina A&T Just want to thank Trina McLaughlin and all those who participated in that. And again, thank you to the George Washington Eagles for a great season. Mr. Hurley, you really inspired me this evening. Ms. Bowman and all of those of you who spoke. What comes to my mind is when the Tunstall young people come here, all of us as council members are really excited about signing their homework assignment. So I'm hoping that you all will continue to come. And Mr. Hurley, I would honestly say that you shared some wisdom with me tonight because you said you met your wife at the river. I've been looking at the wrong places. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Dr. Miller.
Well, I appreciate the people coming from outside the city. It's always good information, even though I don't agree with what you said. I like to hear what you said. But Pat, well, that's a discussion for another night. The River District, I'm a member of the association. This is how the River District funds their events, and there's some great events. The River District Festival, the Christmas tree lighting, the Halloween party. So come and participate this weekend and contribute to the River District. This is just a great association, and we're very proud of it. And come Saturday night. And Pizzazz, we've had them for the Rotary Valentine's Dance about 3 or 4 years in a row, and they are superb. It's just worth it to come hear them. And that's about all I got to say.
Meeting adjourned.